Hi, I'm Emily. For years, I've been hustling hard as an advertising agent in the house my grandpa left me. It's a cozy place, full of old memories and a constant reminder of the simple life he loved. I never had much time for dating or romantic stuff, I was too wrapped up in climbing the career ladder. But that all changed the day I stumbled onto Jason's profile online. He wasn't like the other guys who'd just throw a cheesy pickup line and wait for a bite. No, Jason was different. His first message was actually decent, a simple, "Hey, I saw your profile, and it seems like we have a lot in common. Would love to chat and get to know you." And boy, did we chat. Hours flew by like minutes, and it wasn't long before we were setting up our first real-life meet. He suggested a little cafe downtown, quaint and quiet, just the type for a proper conversation. I remember walking in, nervous as hell, but there he was, all smiles. Tall, with that confident stance and a grin that could disarm you in seconds. "Emily? Wow, you're even more stunning than your photos," he said as he stood up to greet me. I couldn't help but blush. "Thanks, Jason. You're not so bad yourself," I replied, trying to play it cool but really feeling the butterflies. We sat and talked about everything, our jobs, our hobbies, our dreams. He owned a small furniture workshop, something he'd built from scratch. "It's tough work, but I love creating things that people will use for years, you know? Gives me a sense of purpose," Jason explained, his eyes lighting up as he spoke. "That's amazing," I said, genuinely impressed. "I spend my days convincing people they need things they probably don't. Your job sounds way more fulfilling." Jason laughed, that hearty, infectious laugh. "Well, everyone needs a good ad now and then. Keeps the world spinning." As we parted ways, he leaned in and gave me a gentle hug. "Take care, Emily. I'll text you." And text he did. Our chats became an everyday thing. We'd share bits of our day, jokes, and even the occasional selfie. Jason was quick to become someone I could lean on, someone who made the stress of my job a little lighter with just a few words. I told my best friend Sarah about him. Over coffee one morning, I couldn't stop gushing. "He's just so real, you know? It's like we've known each other forever." Sarah, ever the skeptic, raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like you've got it bad, Em. Just watch yourself, okay? Guys have a way of seeming perfect at the start." I waved her off, too caught up in my happy bubble. "Nah, Jason's different. You'll see. He's one of the good ones." Little did I know, the coming months would test that belief in ways I never imagined. But back then, all I could think about was the charming man who had so unexpectedly swept me off my feet. It wasn't long before Jason brought up meeting his mom, Helen. He'd always made it clear how tight they were, always chatting about how she raised him alone and stuff. It sounded kinda sweet, so I was game to meet her. We planned a dinner at his place one weekend. I was a bit anxious, but figured a nice meal and a few smiles would win her over easy enough. I even baked my famous apple pie, thinking it'd be a nice touch. When we got to his house, Jason led me inside, calling out, "Mom, we're here." Helen emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. She was a stern-looking woman with sharp eyes that didn't miss a thing. "Jason, there you are. And this must be Emily." "Yeah, Mom, this is her." This is my mom, Helen." "Pleased to meet you," I said, extending my hand and flashing my best polite smile. She shook it, but her grip was cold, her smile kind of forced. "Likewise," she said, quickly turning her attention back to Jason. "Let me look at you. Have you been eating well? You look thin." I stood there, a bit awkward, holding my pie like a shield. Jason laughed it off. "I'm fine, Mom. Emily takes good care of me." That comment seemed to stiffen her up a bit, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she led us to the dining room where everything was set up fancy. Dinner was, well, intense. Helen had made a feast, and every dish was like a statement. Jason loves my beef stew. I'd been making it since he was a boy. Isn't that right, dear? Jason nodded, shoveling in another mouthful. Nobody makes it like you, Mom. The conversation was mostly her asking Jason about his work, his health, every detail of his life. I felt more like I was watching a two-person play than being part of the dinner. After we ate, I brought out my pie, hoping to break the ice a bit. I hope you like apple pie, Helen. It's kind of my specialty. Helen cut a small piece, tasted it, and put her fork down. It's nice, dear. But I usually prefer something less sweet. Jason, remember the pies your Aunt Linda used to make? Jason nodded, quick to please. Yeah, those were great. But Em's pies are awesome too. The evening dragged on with me feeling more out of place by the minute. When we finally left, Jason was all apologies. Sorry if Mom was a bit cold tonight. She's just protective, you know? Yeah, I get it. Family's important, I said, trying to keep the disappointment out of my voice. But inside, I felt a chill that hadn't been there before. On the drive home, I couldn't shake off the feeling that Helen hadn't just been cold, she'd been downright icy. Jason, does she not like me or something? He sighed, steering with one hand. Nah, she's just like that. Give her time. She'll warm up to you. She just needs to see you're good for me, that's all. I wanted to believe him, really did. But something in the pit of my stomach told me it wasn't going to be that simple. Helen wasn't just protective, she was marking her territory, and I had unwittingly stepped right into the middle of it. As the wedding plans kicked into final gear, there was one thing that kept nagging me. Jason hadn't mentioned anything about inviting his dad. One evening, while we were sifting through guest lists and seating charts, I finally brought it up. Hey, Jason, I noticed your dad's not on the guest list. Aren't you gonna invite him? Jason looked up from the papers, his face a mix of confusion and discomfort. No, I don't see him. He left us, just walked out on Mom and me. We haven't talked in years. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to dig around a bit. A couple of calls and internet searches later, I had his dad's number. Taking a deep breath, I dialed it, my heart pounding as it rang. Hello? The voice on the other end was wary, but calm. Hi, I'm Emily, Jason's fiancée. We're getting married soon, and I thought it'd be nice to invite you. There was a pause, long enough to make me think he'd hung up. Then, that's kind of you, Emily. But no, I shouldn't come. It would only stir up old troubles. Just, be careful with Jason and his mom. I hung up, frowning. His words echoed in my mind, but I brushed them off as the ramblings of a man who'd lost touch. Maybe he was bitter, or just out of his mind a bit. Back to the wedding plans. Jason and I were buzzing with ideas, flipping through magazines, picking out colors, tasting cakes. But then Helen got involved, and the whole vibe changed. Emily, dear, I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of booking the church, Helen said one afternoon, dropping the news like she was just talking about the weather. I blinked, taken aback. Oh, actually Jason and I were thinking of a beach wedding. She sked softly, shaking her head. No, that won't do at all. A traditional wedding is what everyone expects. And it's what's best for family photos, you know? Jason didn't say a word, just nodded along with whatever his mom said. It was like suddenly I wasn't the bride anymore, I was just a guest at my own wedding. I'd always dreamed of a simple, elegant cake with wildflowers. But Helen wanted a 5-tier monster that looked like something out of a fairy tale. Emily, it has to be grand. It's a reflection of our family, Helen insisted, flipping through a catalog she'd brought to the bakery. I took a deep breath. Helen, it's our wedding. Jason's and mine. I feel like I'm losing all say in it. Darling, I'm just trying to make sure it's a day no one will forget. Trust me, you'll thank me later. The wedding day itself was a blur. Helen was everywhere, fixing this, adjusting that. When it came time to cut the cake, she practically elbowed me out of the way. "Let's show them how it's done, Jason," she exclaimed, taking the knife and slicing the cake with a flourish. I stood there, my new husband on one side, his mother on the other, feeling more alone than ever. "Smile, Emily. It's the happiest day of your life," Helen called out, standing between Jason and me, as the photographer snapped away, capturing every moment. My own wedding didn't feel like it was mine at all. It was a Helen production, featuring Emily in supporting role. Life after the wedding was supposed to be blissful, right? Well, not exactly. Everything was great when it was just me and Jason in the house I inherited from my grandpa, except for the weekends when we'd visit his mom, Helen. Those dinners were a constant jab at my cooking skills, or according to Helen, the lack thereof. "You'll never get the seasoning right like I do," Helen would comment as she served her dishes, which Jason always praised to the skies. It stung, and I often left feeling smaller and less competent. 3 months into our marriage, Helen showed up at our doorstep, her suitcases packed, claiming she was too unwell to live alone anymore. "It's just too much, all by myself. I need to be near you, Jason," she explained. Before I could even process the situation, Jason had wrapped his arms around her. "Of course, Mom. This is your home too." Just like that, I was sharing my home with Helen. And not as a guest, she took over. She spent her days lounging on the sofa, flipping through TV channels or commenting on how things were run in the household, never lifting a finger to help. At night, the house felt even smaller. Jason and Helen would sit together, laughing and watching their favorite shows, while I was left alone in the bedroom, feeling like a stranger in my own home. One Saturday, they went out shopping, without me. It was becoming a routine, and the loneliness was eating at me. When they returned, I decided it was time to clear the air. At dinner, I mustered my courage. "Helen, have you thought about when you might go back home?" The room fell silent. Jason's face turned dark. "Are you trying to kick my mom out?" I just thought. My words trailed off under his fierce look. "It's my house too, isn't it?" Helen chimed in, her tone icy, a smirk playing on her lips. I wanted to explain, to make Jason see it wasn't about kicking his mom out, but about finding a balance. He wouldn't hear it, though, storming off to his room while Helen's laughter echoed after him. The next week, I found my old photo albums in the attic. They were ruined, pictures torn, some even with needle holes. I brought them down, my hands trembling as I showed Jason. "Look at this. Can you believe it?" He barely glanced at the photos. "It's probably your fault. You've never taken care of your stuff properly." Helen, overhearing us, just smiled sweetly and continued her knitting, her satisfaction barely concealed. After that, it got worse. My clothes would turn up with stains, my makeup mysteriously ruined. Each incident small enough to seem accidental, but the pattern was clear. Helen was marking her territory, and I was the intruder. After months of tension and subtle sabotages that seemed to escalate daily, I felt like I was nearing my breaking point. I couldn't take it anymore. One evening, after finding another one of my favorite sweaters ruined, I confronted Jason with tears in my eyes. "Jason, I can't do this anymore. Your mom, she's making my life miserable here." He looked at me, seemingly unfazed by my distress. I think you're just stressed. You need a break, some time to relax." Surprised by his calmness but hopeful, I nodded eagerly, wiping away my tears. "Yes, a break sounds wonderful. Maybe we could go somewhere, just the two of us?" Jason smiled, his solution apparently ready. "Actually, I already thought of that. I've planned a trip for you, a mountain hike. I thought it'd be good for you and Mom to spend some quality time together, to fix things." My heart sank. "What? Jason, no, It's settled, Em. Either you're serious about fixing this, or you don't care enough about us. My mom's already looking forward to it." Feeling cornered, I agreed, though every part of me screamed that it was a bad idea. Helen seemed unusually chipper about the trip, her backpack packed with a speed that was unsettling. The hike started off well enough. The weather was perfect, the scenery breathtaking. Helen kept pace initially, her demeanor calm and almost pleasant. But as the trail became more rugged, she began to falter. "I need to rest a bit, dear," she said, sitting heavily on a nearby rock. "Sure, Helen. Do you want some water?" I asked, concerned despite everything. She waved me off. No. Just go see how far the group is. I'll catch my breath here." I climbed a small rock to get a better view. "They're just up ahead. We can catch up if we..." The push came suddenly, unexpected. I felt a sharp shove between my shoulder blades, sending me sprawling forward down the slope. Pain shot through my body as I tumbled, coming to a jarring stop against a tree. The last thing I remember was the darkness. I regained consciousness from the pain. Dazed and hurting, I struggled to sit up. My leg was twisted at an odd angle, pain flaring with even the slightest movement. Panic set in as I realized Helen was nowhere in sight, and neither was my backpack, with my phone, water, and food. As night fell, the temperature dropped. I managed to pull myself onto a large rock, away from any wildlife that might be roaming. The cold seeped into my bones, and I shivered uncontrollably, waiting for dawn. When the light finally broke, I assessed my situation. I had to move, staying there wasn't an option. Gritting my teeth against the pain, I slid off the rock and started hobbling in the direction I thought the bus would be. Hours later, by some miracle, I stumbled upon another group of hikers. They were shocked at my condition and immediately offered assistance. "Are you all right? What happened?" one of them asked, concern etched on his face as they helped me sit. I managed a weak smile, tears mixing with relief. "I fell. Can you help me get to a hospital?" They nodded, supporting me as we made our way back to civilization. The hospital was a blur of faces and questions, but through it all, I knew one thing for sure: Helen had intended to hurt me, and somehow, I had to prove it. My first instinct was to call Jason, to tell him what his mother had done to me in the mountains. I dialed his number, my hands trembling, hoping for some kind of understanding or support. "Jason, it's me. I need to tell you something important. Your mom, she pushed me off a rock and left me there alone. I could have died," I managed to say, my voice cracking. There was a pause on the other end, and then Jason's voice came through, not soft or concerned, but hard and accusing. "Are you out of your mind? My mom told me everything. You left her in the mountains. You're just trying to get her in trouble, because you hate her. You're a liar, Emily." I was stunned. "Jason, no, you have to believe me. I don't want to hear it. I'm done with this drama. Maybe we should just end this, get a divorce or something," he snapped before the line went dead. Tears streamed down my face as I lay back on the hospital bed. I was alone, truly alone, but then I remembered the warning Jason's father had given me before the wedding. I found his number and called him, desperate for someone to believe me. "Hello?" His voice was cautious, but when I explained who I was and what had happened, his tone changed to one of concern. "Oh, Emily, I'm so sorry to hear that. I warned you about Helen, she's always been..." He trailed off, searching for the right words. "She's obsessed with making sure Jason gets everything. She once tried to kill me. Tampered with my car brakes. She wanted me gone so that everything would go to Jason." My heart raced. "Why didn't you go to the police with this? Why didn't you stop her?" It was her word against mine, no proof. "She's cunning, Emily. But we need to stop her now, before she hurts anyone else. I'll come to the hospital. We'll think of something together." Hours later, Jason's father sat by my hospital bed. His face was lined with years of stress, his eyes weary but kind. We leaned close, speaking in hushed tones, trying to piece together a strategy that would bring Helen's actions to light and protect us both from her manipulations. The next morning, I called Sarah, my best friend, and filled her in on what needed to be done. Her job was to drop a hint to Jason that my injuries were life-threatening, that I might not make it. She agreed, her voice heavy with concern but determined to help. "Don't worry, Em. I'll make sure he thinks it's really bad," she assured me. True to her word, the next morning Jason and Helen showed up at my hospital room, their faces a mask of faux concern. I lay there, pretending to be weaker than I was, barely opening my eyes as they entered. Jason hovered at the doorway while Helen came closer, a smirk curling her lips as she leaned in close. "Looks like everything's going according to plan, sweetheart. Soon, all of Emily's money and that lovely house will be ours." Jason, standing a bit behind his mother, added quietly, "I'm tired of her, Mom. Can't wait till this is all over." He kissed Helen on the cheek, an accomplice to her cruelty. My heart hammered in my chest as I heard Helen's words. I pushed her off that rock myself. Told the others she went back down to catch a bus home. It was perfect. That was when my father-in-law chose to enter. He stepped into the room, his presence commanding as he said loudly, "Everything you just said has been recorded." The shock on Jason and Helen's faces was almost satisfying. Jason's eyes widened in disbelief, while Helen's face went pale. What are you talking about?" she stammered. I chose that moment to stop pretending. Sitting up, I fixed them with a steady gaze. "It's over. You're caught." Jason spun around, his confusion turning to anger. "This is a setup. You're trying to trap us." Helen tried to push past her ex-husband to escape, but he blocked her path firmly. "The police are on their way, Helen. There's no running from what you've done." As the reality of their situation sank in, Jason turned to his father, desperation clear in his voice. "If you do this, you'll have no one left. I'm your only son." My father-in-law, his expression unreadable for a moment, then revealed a knowing smile. "Actually, Emily is pregnant. My grandchild will be my heir." The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air. I watched Jason's face crumble, his schemes and betrayals catching up to him finally. "And all my money, my properties, will go to my grandchild," his father continued, turning his back on his son, his decision final. The police arrived shortly after, taking Helen and Jason away in handcuffs. I handed Jason the divorce papers I had prepared. "You'll answer for everything," I said, my voice steady, despite the turmoil inside me. Watching them being led away, I felt a mix of relief and sorrow. Relief that justice was being served, and sorrow for the love I thought I had found. My father-in-law stood beside me, his hand on my shoulder. "We'll get through this, Emily. You and the baby are my family now." The courtroom was heavy with tension, the kind that seeps into your bones and doesn't let go. Sitting beside my father-in-law, my hand resting lightly on my now visibly pregnant belly, I watched as Helen and Jason were brought in. Helen, ever the proud matriarch, took the stand with a defiant air. Her confession was chilling. "Yes, I did what I thought was necessary for my son's future. He deserves the best, and if that meant removing Emily from our lives, so be it. A mother does what she must for her child's prosperity." When the verdict was read, guilty, with a sentence of several years for both, relief washed over me. It was over. Justice had been served. A few months later, I gave birth to George. Back at home, with my newborn son cradled gently in my arms, I recounted everything to Sarah over a cup of coffee. She had been my rock throughout this ordeal, never wavering in her support. "Can you believe it's finally over?" I asked, watching my son sleep peacefully. Sarah shook her head, her eyes wide. "I still can't believe what you went through. But look at you now, stronger and with this beautiful little boy." My father-in-law, who had taken to his role as a grandfather with a joy that warmed my heart, came into the room with a tray of snacks. "You know, I've been thinking about setting up a trust for the little one. He's going to have every opportunity in the world." That night, as I put my son to bed in the nursery, I thought about how life had turned out so differently from what I had imagined. There was pain and betrayal, but also redemption and new beginnings. As I watched my son sleeping, a sense of peace settled over me. The next day, I walked around my garden, the place where I'd found solace during the darkest times. I wanted a life filled with love, honesty, and joy for my son. No shadows from the past to darken his days. As I tended to the flowers, I made a silent promise to myself and to him, to be the kind of mother who nurtures and supports, never sacrificing the well-being of her child for personal gain.